All right. Today, we are going to use ChemPalm data to make a model to predict the 2024 NCAA March Madness champion. If that sounds interesting to you, stick around. Without further ado, let's go.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Thanks you so much for being here. Today, we are going to use historical ChemPalm data to create some models that will do two things. We're going to specifically talk about two things. We're going to calculate the probability of winning the overall championship and then the probability of making it to the final four. We're going to talk about where these data come from, kind of some of the reasoning, hypothesis. We can look at some back testing as well. And then we're going to get into the nuance of actually how to use these numbers. I've been working on this for a couple of weeks now and have found some pretty interesting stuff. And I've been, keeping my pulse on a few teams as far as the markets are concerned. So I think this is really going to be quite interesting. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure to give us a like and a follow. We are, really committed to delivering a lot of this stuff, and we are only going to be giving you more content here on YouTube. So again, if you're interested in any of this stuff, give us a follow and let us know what other things you want to see in the comments. So let us jump right in here. I just got to set up a couple things and we will be off to the races. Okay. So I'm going to add this in there. Okay. We are good. I'm going to zoom in here a bit for you guys. So if you're not, not familiar with KenPom, so Ken Pomeroy, he has actually had this website, from my understanding, since 2000. And what his website is completely dedicated to college basketball data, and he actually predicts every single game for every day all season. I mean, it's a gauntlet what he does, but as you can imagine, this can be pretty powerful. And one thing that I actually came across, which I wasn't aware of, was how he has his data structured going back to 1999. So Kempholm has all of his adjusted offense and defensive numbers, rank, even strength of schedule numbers going back all the way to 1999. But what was actually quite interesting is he has this pre-tournament tab that if you click this, it'll download these. It'll download this year's information for all of the data up until when the tournament started, which is really powerful. Why is that powerful? Well, the problem is when we go back and we just look at historical data to see if we can predict who is going to win. Well, we are using observations in these numbers that were during the tournament, meaning these data contain the result in them, right? Which is really kind of a no-no in prediction. So it's going to make it seem like it's very easy to predict who won because you're using data that happened not before, but after they won, right? So, but anyways, so this is pretty powerful. So what I thought, well, dang, there's a lot of data here. This technically only goes back to 2001, actually, because 99 and 2000 you actually can't download. So whatever, we have 2001 all the way through 2023 data that we can go and look at and actually create a model, and that's actually exactly what we did here. So I created a model. It looks, the data that are underlying it looks something like this, and you're going to be able to have access to this data set. It's here in the link below, and it's also on our website, bullytheboard.com. If you go to this NCAA data tab and then go down to March Madness model data, you click that, it'll take you to this page, and then if you go down to KP data, this is the actual database that we're talking about. And it takes a little bit to load because it's quite a lot of data. It goes back again till 2000. So again, what does this information have? It has all of the offensive and defensive numbers. These are adjusted for tempo. It has the average strength of schedule. And what I've done here for you, so you don't have to do this, is I've gone back and I've added which teams made the Final Four. This is delineated by a 1 here. A 0 means they did not. And then it also has a flag for all of the champions, right? So there's only 21 or I don't know, 22-ish champions in this data set. There's a lot more Final Four people. There's 4 times as many, not surprising. And then for years of 2002, 3, and 4, I've tried to go up and dig up the odds for some of the major contenders so I could, back test and do this. For the 2004 data, I've done my best to also add the Final Four odds. Unfortunately, there's no API for this, so it only has the main teams that I want to analyze. I think there's maybe 30 teams or so that I have this data for. And so these data are already in there. So if you're interested, you can go just copy and paste it and go crazy. So this is the underlying data. So what my hypothesis was, I was going to take those data, which again are pre-tournament data, and then I want to model who is going to win that season, or really I want to see the probability of teams, and then I want to compare what the Vegas odds were to what my model says, right? And then anything with an edge, I want to bet. So let's go back in the past here and let's look what this would have done in 2003. So last season, what would this model have shown us? So we can run these numbers and we can see what these would show us. I'll take a little pit stop here. If you're into the actual modeling here, these are logistic regression models. And I can actually show you here. So we're telling it basically proc logistic. What this is going to do is going to tell us the probability of winning the championship given these variables: rank of your strength of schedule, adjusted tempo, adjusted offensive efficiency, adjusted defensive efficiency. Okay. And then we have a very similar model. It's the same thing, except it's going to tell us the probability of making the Final Four given those same variables. So looking at our diagnostics, things, not surprising, these are somewhat predictive. Offensive efficiency seems to be a little bit much, bigger of a signal, so to speak, than maybe defense, tempo, and rank of your strength of schedule. But nonetheless, I don't feel comfortable taking them out, and it's quite predictive. And then the Final Four a little less predictive. And you can see that like defensive and offense play a bigger role. And I think what we're seeing here with these data, and you can also see the average adjusted strength of schedule is predictive. When we're talking about the championship, if you think about it, we only have 20-ish, 21, I think 21 or 22 observations of champion. So these are, we have a lot of data, but we don't have a lot of observations of the event, if that makes any sense. Whereas the Final Four, we have 4 times as many observations of the event. And so I think we're getting a little bit more analytical power here from this model. So anyways, what does this all tell us? Well, it's pretty interesting. In 2023, and remember, this would have been, let's say this is selection Sunday night, you would pull these data down and you would compare against what Vegas has, right? Because this is pre-tournament data. So it showed that Gonzaga had a 7.6% chance of winning via our model. Vegas only gave them a 6.3% chance to win. So our odds, if you convert the 7.6, is plus 1209. Vegas had at plus 1500. That was a 1.4% edge. Okay, that's great. And then Connecticut was the other one, right? We made the number 6.3. Our model said they had a 6.3% chance of winning. Vegas was at 6.3. You can see that there was a little. Now, I know because we bet Connecticut last year that this is, again, remember, this is the Sunday before. We had a ticket for Connecticut plus 2,800 about a week and a half prior to Selection Sunday. So there was an edge here for Connecticut. Now, I didn't have this model. We were using some more crude methods to come up with this, but nonetheless, I know for a fact that this plus 1,500 is an underestimate of the value. If we go over here to the Final Four, we can see that we had a 14.7% chance for Gonzaga to make the Final Four, almost a 20%, so 19.6% chance for Connecticut to make the Final Four. I don't have those historical odds, so I can't really assess, how much of an edge. UCLA here had a pretty big shot. Last year was quite interesting. I was going back and looking, for the teams that actually did make it and see what our actual edge was. So Final Four here, we're just looking for a 1. Okay, so here's San Diego State. We gave them a plus 1540, which is a 6.1% chance of making it. They obviously did make it. They ended up making the final. Where's the next one? Who else? I think it was Miami was the other team. Let's see. if I can find them. There we go. Oh, here's Florida Atlantic, plus 3,500. Another team we bet on last year. We didn't have a model, but I know for a fact that this number was plus 5,000 for them to make the Final Four, which there obviously was value. And then Miami, somewhere around here, Miami, Florida, they made it. We made them plus 11,000. So I don't know what the odds were for them, but it looks like I'm imagining there probably was a negative value there because this was kind of a long shot thing that happened. Okay. Anyway, so that's 2023. So we can do this for 2022 as well, but I'm not going to bore you. You can, well, maybe you guys are interested, so we can take a look. So we'll delete 2023 and 2024 from the data set, so the model doesn't see those data, and we'll only predict 2022, and we'll use all data before that to create the model. Okay, that's what this code is basically doing. You don't really get much difference as far as output. And what do we see? The biggest edge was Gonzaga had a 34.1% chance of making the final, or winning the final rather, and 28.6 was Vegas's number. So there's about a 5.5% edge. This is the one thing that I thought was so interesting here. Our model said there's a 56.8% chance for Gonzaga to make the Final Four. That's a pretty dang good bet. I don't have the numbers on hand to compare it, but I would be really, really shocked if they weren't greater, or like, I think they were probably at least plus 120 ish. So there was pretty good value here on Gonzaga. And obviously they I thought they made the Final Four, but I guess it's saying they didn't. Quite interesting there. And then who do we have? North Carolina. Oh yeah, this is the North Carolina one. We made the number plus 1,600 for them to win. Look how improbable they're via our model. Only 2%. Vegas gave them a 1.6% chance. Obviously they won that year. Yeah, and then if you can go back and you can test this. But the thing I'm really focusing on, the hypothesis here, is going to be two things. It's going to be looking at historical trends for who actually wins the tournament via the KenPom numbers, and it's going to be edge, right? This difference right here is what I want to see. I want to see big edges, right? 5.5%. So I think this is the year Gonzaga like lost in the like crazy game against UCLA. I can't remember. But anyways, like, I want to see edges here. And I really want to see edges where the probability of something happening is actually quite high. So, maybe, I don't have a good example here, but let's run the code for the 2024 data, and let's kind of describe some of this stuff. So, why do I want to focus on things that have a high probability of happening? And it's because ultimately, say I make the number that there's a 0.5% probability of it happening, but the books say it's only 0.1% probability. So I have a really great edge, right? But the probability of it actually happening is still extremely low. So if I'm going to be betting something like that, I want to be betting volume, and I want to be betting a really low proportion of my bankroll, because again, it's an edge, yes, and it's actually a big edge. It's a huge edge, but it is still improbable of happening. So when you can combine big edges with high probability of happening, that is when in my mind, you actually want to pull, a bigger trigger or a bigger percentage of your bankroll. And that's really what I want to be focusing on today. Okay. So just, we're going to get into these numbers a little bit, but just want to kind of show you what the 2024 data. So right now there actually shows a huge edge on Purdue. Purdue right now in the market, we're making them a 26.1% chance to win, which is a plus 283 odds. Vegas right now, best number is 750. That's a 14.3% edge. You can find the same thing with Alabama and Arizona. We're going to talk about some of the nuance here. And then on the Final Four side of things, the biggest edge right now in the marketplace is Houston. Houston right now, we make the number 47.2% for them to make the Final Four. Vegas is only pricing them at 36.4%. And this is the same as, plus 112 from our model and plus 175. That's a 10% edge. That's a pretty big discrepancy, again, at a high probability bet. Okay. So I talked about, I want to combine, big edges. So what is my edge here? What is my edge here in the Final Four? But I also want to combine this with what historical things have actually predicted KenPom winning. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit in the weeds, but I think is a really, really, really important nuance and something that, I came across relatively recently. So you probably would have heard this, and you're probably going to hear it more and more as we get closer to March Madness and Selection Sunday. You're going to hear it from us. The top 57 in offensive efficiency and 44 in defensive efficiency have predicted all of the last, I think, whatever, the 21 champions, right? So that sounds pretty powerful. And you can see where these numbers come from. So I have the offensive numbers here ranked. These are filtered by all of the champions, right? Via our data set. So we can see where they rank pre-tournament. That's 57. And you can see that makes sense. And then we can do the same thing. Defensively. So 44, the worst team is 44. But I really want to point out a very, very, very important thing. And this is actually more true in the offensive side, is rank is relative to season, meaning your relative rank is not the rank of all seasons for all teams. It is the relative rank of your defense in that season. So what this means is your offense or defense, the aggregate or the average offensive and defensive efficiency in that season can be higher or lower for that season given other seasons. Here's a really good example. Offensive efficiency, that 57 number. So, right, that this is the 57th overall offense. Well, an interesting phenomenon here. This happens to be we'll rank them here. So we'll rank them here between the 2014 and 2003 team. So the 2014 Connecticut team that won, they had the 57th ranked offense. The 2003 Syracuse team that won, they were only 2 points better per 100 possessions, right? Only 2 points, which is not very much, but were the 18th ranked overall efficiency. Well, what does that mean? It means in this season, the offense of the overall league wasn't as efficient. And so the rank here can be misleading because these teams are only 2 points in difference, but almost 30 something, rank teams different. Now, this is even more egregious here defensively. So what do we talk about? We talked about, the 44 ranked, but this is really interesting. The 2001 Baylor team actually had a better defense than both the 2009 North Carolina and Duke teams. They actually had a better overall number of points per 100 possessions given up than both of those other champions, but yet their rank was higher. What does that mean? It means in this 2001 season, the actual league's overall defensive efficiency, or college, whatever you want to call it, was actually better than these other two seasons in 2009 and 2015. And so their relative rank was higher, but their actual, offensive efficiency, which is the actual number you should be using, was better. So I say all that to say you're going to see a lot of these trends of the top 44 and the top 57. And I'm going to break these down in this video on how we slightly see some different numbers and maybe pose the question to you guys, because it's something I'm still thinking about on how we actually handle this. Okay, so without further ado, let's start breaking this down. Let us first start, if you will. I'm gonna try to take us to learn from this lesson, and I want to look at basically, instead of using the ranks, right? I want to look at the KenPom teams that have won in the past, but instead of you looking at the top 57 in offense and top 44 in defense, I'm rather going to make my criteria. You're going to have to be 111 points per 100 possessions on offensive efficiency, and you're going to have to be better than 95.98 on defense, right? Instead of the ranks, I'm going to use the actual offensive efficiency numbers. Okay, cool. This is what we get. So these are the actual offensive and defense numbers from KenPom. These are our odds to win the championship, and then this column here is our edge. So what do we see when we're talking about the champion? Well, a couple things I want to point out. That Purdue team we talked about isn't on this list, which is interesting. But these teams on this list are teams as of right now, which this is March 3rd, 2024, These are teams that have at least 111.36 or greater on offensive efficiency and 95.98 or better, in this case lower, on defensive efficiency. Okay. And so instead of using ranks, we're using the actual efficiency numbers. And what do we see here? So these are the teams that meet this criteria. So these technically, in my mind, are teams historically what have taken to win the championship, right? On both offensive efficiency. Instead of looking at it at rank, we're going to actually look at their actual offensive and defensive numbers. Okay. So we see that not a lot of these teams actually have edge, right? Mississippi, Villanova, St. Mary's, Michigan State, San Diego State, Kansas, Marquette, and North Carolina, Iowa State. None of these teams are actually good bets to bet them on the championship. You're actually losing money. You don't have an edge. Okay. Auburn, Tennessee, Arizona, Connecticut, and Houston all have positive edges in your direction. And so, just to put this in perspective, the odds to make the championship, obviously, lower numbers here. I have these numbers, so we can look about them. Arizona, we're saying, is a 17.1% probability. Auburn, 8.8% probability. Tennessee, 9.2%, and Connecticut, 18.2%. Is that all of them? Tennessee, Auburn, Tennessee, Arizona. Yeah. So you can see they're relatively high. So where do we see the biggest edge? So in this group, using the continuous variables of offensive and defensive efficiency rather than the ranks, the highest probability as of now for the team to win the championship, the highest edge probability, so obviously not the highest probability overall, but one of the highest probability. We give Purdue the highest probability of winning right now at 26.1%, and then Arizona at 17.1%, and then Connecticut slightly better at 18.2%. Okay, just to put it in perspective. But those are the top three probability via our model. But we have a 10% edge in the marketplace. You can currently get Arizona best number at plus 1,400, and this is a 10% probability edge in your favor, right? So you actually make the number 17.8 or whatever it is we make it. The market's making it almost only 7% to win. So that's a pretty big discrepancy in the marketplace. So for me, this is something I want to bet. But I want to focus on one other huge edge bet from a probabilistic standpoint. So I said I'm looking for these two things. I'm looking for a high inherent probability of that thing winning, and I'm also looking for an edge. This, one of the best combinations, or the best combination I have found in this so far, is Houston to make the Final Four. We make the number plus 1,200, and just to put a probability on that for Houston to make the Final Four, we're saying there's a 47.2% chance, which equates to the plus 112 odds that we get here. But the market, and actually there's a better number in the market. You can get a plus 175 on this number, which is about a 10% edge. Okay. And I went ahead and bet this. And the reason I bet this is because the market is starting to buy these up. I've been tracking this Houston to make the Final Four bet. It was as high as plus 180 about a week ago. And as we get less and less games, we're sitting here on Sunday, March 3rd. Yesterday, Houston just beat Oklahoma. I was hoping maybe they could lose that game. They do play Kansas one more time. And so it depends on how you want to play this. Now, obviously, the other strategy you can do here is you can literally wait until Selection Sunday, or at least until all the games are played, and then run these numbers. The reality here in basketball, college basketball, yes, we have somewhat of a small sample size problem, but when you look at it per 100 possessions, there's actually a fair amount of data for these teams. And so you're not going to see them move all that much. So their offensive and defensive numbers at this point, when these teams have 1 to, let's say, 5 games left, you're not going to see them too terribly, change too much. Now, there obviously is the conference tournament aspect of this. Depending on how far they go or don't go, that can very much impact odds. But for a team like Houston, who is, slated to be the number 1 seed, I think that this number is only going to come down and my edge is only going to evaporate. So it's something I've already went and bet. I've bet Houston plus 175 over at BetMGM. That is currently where that number is. It's plus 155 everywhere else. So the best number, 175, 10% edge. I've went ahead and bet that for Houston. Again, mostly because of the edge, which is huge, 10% edge. But we're saying that there's actually a 47.2% probability. So if we looked at this at 100 bets, this should win 47 of those times, right? I don't actually have to bet that many times to realize this edge, right? So if I'm betting something with, a big edge, but the probability of it happening is only 1%, that means that I have to bet it way more often to actually see it happen, right? So that's how I'm thinking about this. Okay, so Houston, Final Four, that is the bet for me. That's something I am locking in. So let me take us back here. I want to take us back to what we were talking about when we're talking about this stratification of, instead of using the ranks, let's look at the actual, the actual numbers. Okay. But what do we see if we go back to the ranks? Do we see any discrepancy? And the answer is, yeah, we do. We actually see some pretty big discrepancies. So all of the teams that I believe were on this list before are still on this list, especially at the top: Connecticut, Tennessee, Auburn, Arizona, Houston. But we get a number of other teams. And one of the more important teams we see on here is Purdue. Why is this important? Is because Purdue, via our model, has the highest probability of winning the championship. We give them a 26.1% chance, which equates to plus 283 odds. Right now, the best number in the market is plus 750. That's a 14.3% edge. You can also see the same phenomenon with Alabama, who just lost to Tennessee last night. We give them an 18% probability of making it, and you can get them at plus 2600. Again, another 14.3% edge. Now, I want to point out, you don't see Alabama on this list. So whether you look at them from their actual inherent offensive and defensive efficiency numbers, or you look at it from the rank, it's probably not a good bet. If you look at it historically, it's probably not a good bet. If you look at it from an EV standpoint, it might be a good bet, but it depends on how much you weight these historical numbers. How predictive do you think they are? How accurate do you think, if your hypothesis is basically, nobody with if you have 110 efficiency, you score 110 points per 100 possessions. Nope, there's zero probability you can win the championship. I think that's probably hyperbolic and probably not a great way to think about it. But you can see the guardrails of where these teams usually lie, right? And what they make up or lose in offense, they usually make up for in defense, or what they don't have on defense, they usually make up on offense, right? You can see that these teams aren't like, there's very few super teams, so to speak. Maybe what is this 2001 Duke, I guess, was like a super team. Crazy good defensively, really efficient offensively. Second best defense, second best offense. Like, here's another team, Kansas 2008, like really good offensively, insanely good defensively. That's the outlier here, right? Here's that one, that plus 20. This team is the third best offense, but the 44 best defense. So anyways, it depends on how much weight you want to put on that, but I just want to point that out. So bringing the ranks in, right? So 57th in offense and 47th in defense, what we get a bit of a bigger list, right? And what this, tells us here is that Purdue, oh, sorry about that. Got to bring that back up. Okay. There it is. Okay. So we see Purdue here, and then we can look and we can now see our 14-point percentage. So the question becomes, do we think this is a good bet for Purdue? And the question that I'm asking myself before I bet this is, do I think that there's enough games left for Purdue's play to get them to that 95 number here? Because they're already there from a ranking standpoint, but they're not there from an actual inherent defensive points possession. They're giving up about 1.2 points more per 100 possessions than I want them to. So the question becomes, how much do I actually weight that? How important do I think that is? And I don't have a great answer at this time. I can tell you how, a 14.3% edge in the marketplace is huge. And the other thing that's really interesting is this is the second best, offense in the league. I think behind Alabama. So, this is a team that is extremely offensive efficient. And because of that, gives me a little bit of hope and pause to bet it. But I want to just point out here, so if we zoom out, the two best bets at this time, if you want to bet the championship, in my opinion, from an edge standpoint, the biggest edges in the market are Arizona at plus 1400. You have about a 10% edge on that bet, and Purdue at plus 750. You have about a 14.3% edge, which is crazy. So, the only thing that's holding me back from betting Purdue right now is these defensive and offensive efficiency numbers. If we actually look at the inherent skill of these teams, we get slightly different, we get a slightly different list of teams. And I tend to think that these numbers are going to be more accurate. These, better than 111.36 on offense and less than 95.98 on defense, which again, if you round up, let's just round that up to 96. What are they at? 96, but they're 0.7 points away. How big of a deal is that 0.7 points per 100% possessions, especially when the team is scoring so much? And then the other question I have is, can or does Purdue actually get there? Like, do they got to play the Big Ten tournament? Like, they're going to have to play more games. And when we're talking only about a 0.7% number, do they actually end up getting below that 95.98, defense number? The answer is maybe. So to me, it's a question on if I'm going to bet this. I think right now my strategy, like I already told you guys, I went ahead and I bet the plus 175 Houston to make the Final Four over at BetMGM. What I think I'm going to do is I am going to bet 1 unit Purdue at the plus 750. I think right now that best number is over at FanDuel. And then I am going to bet 1 unit my bankroll on Arizona to win the championship at this 10% edge. I think for me right now, those numbers are just a bit too like, it's just too big of an edge. It's just too big of an edge. Arizona has had some really weird losses, but obviously this is March Madness. Anything can happen. One thing you may be asking yourself is, well, what are we saw such a big edge for Alabama at a 14.3% edge. What are their actual numbers? So we can actually look that up here. If we go to Alabama, so we got to filter down to the 2024 data, which I probably could have just done. We're almost there already. Okay, Alabama. So they are 123rd, 123 points. So they're the number 1 team. And then the defense, I think this is their defensive number. So just double check. Sorry to scroll on y'all. Yeah, smarter, not harder. Let's just do this. So let's uncheck champ. Boom. Here's all the teams. And we will get rid of, we'll just do here. And Alabama should be Alabama. And yeah, they are 128 and 202, which is 101st. So basically, in my mind, there's never going to be a probability where Alabama could do anything defensively in order to get to that number we need them to get to, which is what we said it was about a 96. So they gotta get 6 points, 6.5 points better on defense. That is not going to happen. There's just not enough games in the sample. There's just not. Now, the question becomes, and it's a fair question to ask, is this the year where the defensive criteria grows? So, and now it goes from the top 44 in defense to the 100, the 98th team. Maybe they end up 98th pre-tournament. And then now they're the new anomaly. That's the way that the real data work, right? There is no rule in the universe that says that the champion must be within these criteria of KenPom. There's no, law of physics that is dictating that. Okay, so I think it's a really foolish way to think of it in that way. I think the better way to think about this is it's guardrails. These are historically what it takes to win the championship. And so, to me, that's a much better way of thinking about it, right? You have to have either, a fair amount of defensive skill. And if you don't have the defensive skill, you have the offensive skill. We just showed that, right? So if this team is the 57th best offense, but again, they're this 12th overall defense, right? They're one of the best defenses in the league, in college, right? In the nation, but they were, still pretty good at offense, right? And we talked about, we don't actually know relative to all champions where these teams rank. They actually happen to be the worst offense that's ever won, but we don't know where that ranks in all teams of all seasons, right? And then defensively, we talked this 44 ranked defense was actually better than the next two best defenses, right? So it's more to me the inherent skill. It's more of me the actual points per possession on offense and points per possession on defense, which makes me more want to go with these numbers and these teams and not bet Purdue, but Purdue is right on that line, man. Defense. Oh yeah, I guess am I even wrong? Oh no, there's Connecticut. Look how we're talking less than a point per 100 possessions. Which I don't even think there's 100 possessions in a game. So in a typical game, right? So we're really they're right on the edge. And they're right on the edge, and I have a 14% edge. So to me, that's what's making me lean towards a small bet of my bankroll, outsized gain. I'm not, anomalies can happen. And then the interesting thing here is no one's going to bat an eye at it because they're just going to, they are the 20th ranked defense in the the 21st ranked defense in the second ranked offense. So they're going to fall within the KenPom trend, even though technically speaking, when we look back on this list, defensively, they're 95, where are they? 96, will be technically a new high defensively for letting teams in, which is that more a function of how basketball is played and won, and scoring is much more important. And our models show that, right? Our model showed that when we're looking at the champion, what actually is the most predictive? It's the offensive scoring. And we've seen that, right? Teams like San Diego State, teams like, I guess Miami's kind of not example, but San Diego State last year, for sure, really slow defensive team, gets all the way to the final four, gets all the way to the championship, gets blown out by a really, really, really efficient offensive team in Connecticut. So, these teams with defense can go far in the tournament, but they just seem when the tough gets going and offense, you need a really good offense. That seems to be what wins. So to me, that's kind of where my money's going to go. So I guess as a recap for me, I have already bet this. I'm taking the plus 750 Houston for them to make the Final Four. I'm going to bet Arizona at plus 1,400 to win the championship. And it's very high probability. I'm going to bet Purdue plus 750 to win the championship as well. I think those are where the biggest edges are. Now, as a reminder, if you want to create your own model, you want to create your own stuff, I have provided these data for you. So you can go to the link in the description, or you can go to bullytheboard.com. Again, bullytheboard.com. You can go to the NCAA tab and then go to March Madness. If you scroll down to the bottom and click KP data, it'll come up with that database that I was showing you and we were referencing. Now, the one thing I want to point out here is I've only taken the time to create Final Four and Champion. You can replicate this and do a Sweet 16, an Elite 8, and you can create a model that will price those things as well, and you can find edges in those marketplaces. All you'll need to do is go back and create a column here that says Elite 8, and then just put ones of all the teams that have made the Elite 8 since 2001 and all the teams that didn't, and just put zeros. And you create a model just like I've done here. And instead of, Final Four, you'll just put Elite 8 and it'll tell you the probability, right? So you can create models for beyond that. And the only thing you'll need to do, you already have all the data structured, you just have to go back and add those things. The other thing that I would, if anybody has time and is a little bit better at computer science than me, one thing I really am interested in is to do, if you go over to Bart Torvik, his website, he also has historical data, and you can end it. You can end it whenever you want. So if you wanted to go back to the 2000, um, let's see if we can historical game team player stats, game stats, team stats, and you wanted to go back to 2003. I think these are probably going to all be post season. So can you go back? Oh yeah, see, here you go. So this is what I was looking for. So you can go back to 2003, but then you can move this to say pre-tournament. I don't know when the tournament started. Let's just say it's right there. And you could filter and get the pre-tournament data. And then he has these offensive. I wonder if his numbers are different at all, but what he does have that KenPom doesn't have is rebounds, turnover. He has the 4 factors, right? Even 3-point rate. You can't guarantee anything in life, but it's highly probable the more granular, information you add to these models, the more accurate they're going to be. And when we're working with, I don't say these are large sample sizes, but these are fairly large sample sizes, especially for the Final Four data. I highly suspect that these numbers and these variables add predictive power to the model. The problem becomes, can you actually line up all this information for all the teams for all the years, right? Because you got to go back to all the way to 2001. But if you have time, I think this will pay a lot of dividends on adding these data. And then what you'll be able to do once that database is larger, you'll be able to add those models here, or those variables here, to your model. And I, again, think you'll have a higher accuracy in which you're pricing these things. So yeah, so let us know in the comments what you guys think. Again, if you've made it this far in the video, I hope you found it interesting and helpful, and how we're thinking about pricing these markets specifically, and where we find edge right now. I mean, I will continue to update the website. So if you don't have any coding experience, you just want to follow along and see, just go over to bullytheboard.com. We'll have everything there. I'll post this information on there so you can keep track of it. I will continue to update this every couple of days, and obviously right before the tournament, we'll update it and see where we're at. But I highly suspect what we're going to see, and this is the hypothesis, and this is the closing line value aspect of things. I'm okay betting Houston, Purdue, and Arizona now, because ultimately I don't think that other than injury, and injury can happen at any time, there's not a whole lot, in my opinion, that's going to happen now or the next couple of weeks that's going to change these prices. And what I think other smart, intelligent people are going to be doing is they're going to be betting these in the marketplace. I'm already seeing that with Houston just 2 days ago, and I'm not exaggerating. 2 days ago, the highest number was plus 180, and it was priced at plus 170 at all, pretty much consensus. Today, the highest number is 175, but the only one book, MGM, is there. Everybody else is at plus 155 or plus 150. So the books are already updating their numbers. Now, the interesting thing about these markets, these aren't the normal market making process, right? Each book is managing their numbers and their risk differently, but books are seldomly going to be way, way, way off market than each other. So you're not going to find huge discrepancies usually, because it just doesn't make sense. You can arbitrage these things, but unlike a spread or a spread or a total where there's a market actually happening and really, hammering these prices into shape, that actually isn't going on. So what, in my opinion, you're going to see is you're just going to see numbers get hammered. Like, this 175 at Houston, I suspect that won't be up much longer. I bet you it doesn't last through the week, because MGM is going to start taking money in on Houston, because all of the other professionals that are trying to price this market, they see them with a 4 or 5% edge compared to the rest of the market. They're all getting bet there. Their liability for Houston goes up. They want to change it back to the market, right? So I'm looking to bet these now and then measure that I'm going to get closing line value basically on these numbers. The other thing I would really point out to you is use the double dip methodology for these. And what the double dip methodology is you take, so say you want to bet $200 on Houston to win the Final Four, all right? And you can get them at plus 175. You take $100 and you place a bet for 175, and then you take another $100 and place a bet for 175. What this will allow you to do is, say Houston makes the Elite Eight, and your ticket is you bet it to be 175, and so total payout on that ticket will be 275, right? You'll win 175 profit, and you'll get your $100 back. But you've bet a total of $200, right? Okay, so maybe at the Elite Eight, you can cash a ticket out for 250, 230. You can cash out one ticket. Well, you might want to cash that out at the Elite Eight right before they play, because what did you do? You covered the cost of both tickets. You got $200 back, and you made $30, right? If you made $30 off $200, you got a 15% ROI. Now, that's on odds of plus 175. When we're talking these bigger odds, you can see way bigger payouts, and you can what this allows you to do is it allows you to lock up profit. So you made 15% on your $200, but you still have the other $100 ticket. And now that's a free ride, and all of your upside, well, a lot of your upside is still intact. You can still win now 175, well, 275, right? Because you already covered the price of the ticket. So that 275 profit, if you win, is still intact as an upside gain. But if it loses, say they lose in the Elite Eight, then you made $30, right? You still saw 15% ROI, but you saw your upside staying intact. So it's about limiting your downside, but keeping your upside intact. So it's a really great strategy. So take so basically get 2 tickets for all of these bets you're going to bet. If you do that, you're going to be in a much better place, especially in the day and age when a lot of these books are offering cash outs, right? This is the strategy. They're going to offer you cash out. And I know people are going to tell us it's not EV, it's not EV. It's not it's the EV part of this is finding the bets that are EV now, right? It is a 10% EV bet in my opinion to bet Houston plus 175, right? So that's the hard part. The hard part is identifying the value. Once those bets, especially longer odd bets that are lower probability to happen, if you can use methodologies to lock up profit, lower your downside risk, but keep your upside intact, that is literally the mecca of what you're trying to do, right? Small risk, huge upside, right? That's what investing is. That's what anything in life is, right? So that's my opinion. You will see us talk about the strategy a lot, especially over on TikTok. We have used this. We used this on UConn. We used this on FAU last year. We had 4 $25 tickets for FAU to win the championship. The books didn't want to offer us a cash out until they made the Final Four. At Final Four, each of those $25 tickets were worth $550 each. So I cashed out 2. I made $1,000 off of my $100 investment, right? 4 tickets at $25. I cashed out for $1,000, right? So I made, I guess I made $900 in profit. I covered the $100 cost of my tickets. And what happened? FAU lost. But guess what? I won. I 10x'd my money. But the actual ticket didn't win. So I was in a better position. I locked a profit. And if they would have won, those were priced at $20,000, 20 plus 20,000. Those 2 $25 tickets would have won me $10,000. So I made 10x, and I could have made 100x. I could have made $10,000, but instead of keeping it all, I could have won 20,000. I was able to pull 1,000 off the table and keep $10,000 on the table to ride and made money, right? So these are the situations you're looking for. These are unique to futures bet, in my opinion. So that's a whole other thing. I hope you guys found this helpful. Again, bullytheboard.com. You can get all this information. You can get the database here. Like I said, link in the description to find the actual Google Doc, or you can just go here and copy and paste it, whatever. I hope that you guys found this helpful. I'm trying to get my stuff back on. Boom. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was thought-provoking for you guys, and how I think you should be thinking about your bets, I think you should be going about navigating all this stuff, coming up with a price, understanding where Vegas is weak, where they're strong, where you have an edge, where you don't have an edge. And then the double dip methodology, I think, is a really important methodology to use when it comes to futures bets. But let us know, guys, in the comments, who do you think is going to win? Who do you think actually has value in your opinion? And will you be actually using the double dip methodology, or even betting the teams we talked about today? Would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Remember, if you're not already subscribed, give us a subscribe, give us a like on this video, comment down below. We are committed to bringing more and more content over here on YouTube, and we hope that this is helpful. If there is something you want to see in the future, just let us know. All right, guys, take care. And as always, good luck.